today's episode, we'll be talking about one of the most subtle but powerful signs that a woman is ready to move on. Knowing these signs can save you from painful surprises and help you tell when someone is emotionally checking out. The Stoics were experts at studying human nature and psychology, so we'll be using their ideas to help us figure out how to read these subtle signs. Stay tuned until the end. Like and comment if you've had a similar experience or have your own thoughts to share. Part 1. Distance, both mental and physical. When a woman starts to grow emotionally and physically distant from you in a relationship, it's often one of the first and clearest signs that she may be moving on. This is because emotional closeness and physical closeness are what make a real bond. These foundational elements build trust, comfort, and warmth, making sure that both partners feel supported and valued. When these start to fade, it's usually a sign that her interest is changing. You may notice that she's pulling away, even if she's still technically in the relationship. This gradual distance may indicate a shift in her focus, a potential loss of emotional investment in the relationship, or a readiness to move on. This kind of withdrawal starts slowly and isn't always straightforward to spot right away. At first, it might show up in smaller ways, like sending fewer texts. Whether it's making less eye contact or showing less affection, these small changes can add up over time to a more obvious emotional distance. When a woman starts to put more distance between you, it's usually a defense mechanism to keep her from committing herself more to a relationship she may be unsure about. Stoics believed we should accept reality as it is, not as we wish. This way of thinking can be very helpful here, especially if the changes feel hurtful or confusing. By observing her actions without trying to force an explanation, you're better able to see the situation as it really is. The goal is to keep up a level of emotional resilience by focusing on what's happening instead of holding on to what we hope will happen. Her steady behavior. Behavior or changes in her behavior will often tell you more than words could. For instance, the moments where she seems preoccupied, distant, or uninterested may speak volumes about where her mind and heart are. Often the initial signs of detachment are barely noticeable. These can appear as subtle shifts in the dynamic between you. For example, if she's typically the one to text or call first, but suddenly you find yourself initiating all conversations, this might signal a drop in her enthusiasm, or if physical closeness and affection like hand-holding or spontaneous hugs were once frequent, but now feel forced or absent. This shift could mean that her desire for closeness has faded. These small actions may seem insignificant alone, but when combined over time, they paint a clearer picture of her mindset in situations like this. It's essential to observe her actions and ask yourself if you're seeing a pattern. Stoic philosophy teaches us that every action holds weight, especially when it becomes consistent. Behavior. If these changes in emotional and physical distance start to become the norm rather than the exception, it's a strong sign that she may be reconsidering the relationship. While it's natural to hope that things will return to normal, the Stoics would advise against ignoring what's right in front of us. True resilience, as they taught, lies in understanding and accepting reality rather than living in denial. If she's creating this distance as a way to emotionally disconnect, it's often because she's internally processing her feelings and deciding what's best for her future. This distancing isn't always a conscious decision, but more of an instinctive reaction. When a person's heart isn't fully invested anymore, they naturally begin to detach themselves as a means of protection. This can happen even if she still has fond memories and a lingering attachment to the relationship. In many ways, it's easier for her to transition out of the relationship by creating these small gaps rather than confronting the emotional weight of an outright separation. Physical distance also plays a significant role in this situation. If she used to be physically affectionate but now avoids physical closeness, it could indicate a shift in her feelings about the relationship. Even small actions like pulling away during a hug, pulling back when you hold her hand, or not leaning into your embrace like she used to, can show that she wants to change how she connects with you. Setting a boundary, even if it's just a slight one, can be achieved by creating physical distance. By making herself less accessible physically, She's sending a message that she may not feel the same way she did before. Physical distance and emotional distance can reinforce each other. This combination stands out when it happens all of a sudden or starts to become a trend. For example, if you notice that she stops making physical contact with you, it could mean that she no longer wants to keep an intimate relationship. Stoic wisdom tells you to stay grounded and aware, focusing on the actions that consistently show how she feels instead of holding on to fleeting moments that may seem positive, but don't show the whole picture. If you observe this pattern, it's crucial to recognize it without hastily drawing conclusions. The Stoics would advise practicing patience and self-control instead of trying to force closeness or seek validation. When a woman truly invests in a relationship, it naturally leads to emotional and physical closeness, without the need for pressure or persuasion. But when she's no longer interested, creating distance is a way for her to separate her life from the relationship. She is adjusting to a life where she doesn't rely as heavily on you for connection and happiness. In the end, emotional and physical distance is often one of the first signs that she may be getting ready to move on. It may be challenging to accept, but taking a stoic view of things as they are will help you react with calmness instead of desperation. Observing these signs can help you understand her mindset and decide what to do. Instead of dwelling on how things used to be, focus on where they are now. Once you accept this as reality, you can either talk about the problems directly or get ready for whatever direction the relationship may take next. 2. When you feel like something isn't quite right in a relationship, this inner feeling that something isn't quite satisfactory is one of the first signs that a woman might be emotionally pulling away and possibly moving on. Gut instincts are strong, and they act as a warning system when someone's behavior changes in subtle but important ways. While you may dismiss these feelings as paranoia or insecurity, they are often revealing the truth. Often your intuition can pick up on changes that aren't obvious or straightforward to explain. For example, if your partner is slightly pulling away, you may feel tension or lack of enthusiasm in her responses. Talks that used to go smoothly may feel forced now, or her answers may become short and uninteresting. It's not always straightforward to describe this feeling, an uneasy feeling that the link between you and her is weakening, even if she hasn't said it out loud. If this feeling lasts, it's better to pay attention to it than to ignore it, because our instincts can often pick up on changes in tone, body language, and energy levels before we can say them out loud. Stoicism tells us to believe in ourselves and look for clarity, even if the answers make us feel bad, instead of ignoring our gut feelings. Stoics say to face them with a cool and logical mind and try to figure out what is causing this change. You have to be aware that your gut feelings come from both past events and small clues that are happening right now. Watching her actions with an open mind can help you figure out if this feeling is based in reality or if it's just temporary doubt. It's possible to feel her absence more than her presence when she's there. Body language, such as eye contact and a warm tone in her voice, communicates attraction and emotional investment. If these things go away, the link feels distant and broken. Pay attention to how open and interested she is in talks. Signs such as her distraction or attachment could indicate that your intuition is correct. A simple test is to see if she's ready to spend time on or talk about things that are important to both of you. If her interest wanes, it's a strong sign that something may have changed. When you listen to yoga, it's not necessary to make hasty assumptions. Stoicism teaches patience and mindfulness, and it suggests that before you approach her, you should try to fully understand what's going on. Paying attention to these small changes helps you figure out what she's trying to say without letting your emotions get in the way. Cloud your judgment. If your gut tells you that something is wrong, talk about it quietly. This approach honors her perspective and your intuition, enabling you to discuss issues without succumbing to a cycle of blame or suspicion. When following your gut, you must accept the truth as it is, not as you wish. This is called the Stoic way. Chapter 3 refrains from discussing the future. When women become less interested in discussing the future, it's another indication that they may be moving on. Planning together for vacations, events, or just common goals gets people excited and strengthens their connection when they can't see the future. Staying away from things that involve us or the future could mean that she's thinking again about her role in the relationship and whether she wants to be with you in the future. This avoidance can show up in subtle ways, like avoiding questions about plans or being less than committed when talking about possible trips or events. If she used to discuss dreams and long-term goals, but now only discusses day-to-day matters, the conversations about building a life together may become vague or even superficial. This change could mean that she's thinking again about how much she wants to be in the relationship, but the fact that they haven't talked about the future could mean that she's not ready to leave right away. For Stoics, it's often a sign that she's not sure about making a long-term commitment. Instead of pushing her about plans for the future, it's important to talk to her about this change in an open and calm way. Examine her responses and consider the key beliefs held by the Stoics. Using these ideas will help you understand what's going on. Planning for the future should feel like a natural part of the relationship, not something you need to force if she doesn't want to have these talks. It could be a subtle way for her to show that she has questions without saying them out loud. You may also notice that the future feels less shared and more personal. For example, she may talk about plans for the future that don't include you or goals that seem disconnected from what you and your partner originally planned. While having your own ideas is healthy in a relationship, her consistent exclusion of you from her plans can mean that her priorities are shifting. This behavior shows that she's becoming more independent, possibly because she's already mentally preparing for life without you. If you find yourself in this situation, strive to approach it with a calm demeanor rather than allowing your emotions to interfere. Be cool and clear when you speak. Tell her what you want for the future and see how she reacts. Remember that the Stoics taught us to focus on what we can control, our own thoughts and actions. By being clear about your goals and listening to her answer, you'll get a better idea of how she thinks. This way, you're not forcing her to say anything, but you're giving her a chance to say how she really feels about the direction of the relationship. Part 4. In the world we live in now, digital communication is the foundation of most interactions. Digital communication helps to overcome physical barriers and provides a platform for people to interact. LinkedIn. If a woman starts to date someone else, you'll probably notice a small but important change in her digital distance. This may manifest in a variety of ways. She may send fewer text messages, respond more slowly, and exhibit a general lack of excitement in her interactions, particularly if she used to share updates about her day, random thoughts, or messages expressing her thoughts about you. All of a sudden, she stopped doing these things. Her emotional involvement may have changed. This digital withdrawal is often one of the first signs that she is losing interest, which could mean that her feelings and attachment are going elsewhere. The Stoics believed that actions and patterns could help you figure out what someone was trying to say. When someone's interest wanes, their online appearance often changes, whether they are aware of it or not. She may still be online, but you'll notice that she rarely initiates conversations, and when she does, her responses are typically concise and direct. This gradual decrease in her online activity can reveal her current thoughts. Digital communication has become a main way to meet because it is simple to use. We should take seriously any change in someone's use of digital communication. If she used to tag you in posts, share pictures with you, or regularly mention you in captions, a sudden change in how she interacts with you on social media is a sign of digital distance. She might be establishing an emotional barrier. This change doesn't always mean she's hiding something, but she may be mentally and emotionally pulling away from the relationship. Social media is often used to changing how she talks about you in updates or sharing memories you both enjoyed could be a sign of how she's feeling. It's important to keep this in mind because her digital choices can show you where she is emotionally. For instance, she might post more about her trips with friends, new interests, or even activities she engages in on her own, while gradually erasing any mention of you from her online life. This selective curation of her digital life might seem harmless, but it could mean that she's trying to redefine her identity outside of the relationship. The Stoic principle of observing rather than reacting lets you notice these changes without making snap judgments or accusations. Instead of judging each action, observe her message interactions. If someone values a relationship, they'll usually respond quickly and warmly. But if she's moving on, her responses may become neutral, lack depth, or even seem obligatory. She may skip over questions, respond late without explanation, or give little feedback. This could seem like a lack of emotional investment, and while it's tempting to write it off as a busy schedule, consistency in these digital responses usually shows the truth. The Stoics taught that actions are the purest form of communication, especially when they happen over time. By observing these patterns of behavior online, you get a better idea of how her priorities are changing. If she responds to others frequently but not as much to you, it's possible that she's making different choices about where to spend her time and attention. You may notice that she's more involved with her friends' posts, stories, or activities, while becoming less engaged with you. This change usually happens slowly, but it's a sign that her interest or attachment might be changing. If her online distance becomes more obvious, it's important to approach it with calm and composure. The Stoic principle of restraint tells us to act thoughtfully instead of impulsively. Instead of accusing her of neglect or pushing her to explain, you could gently bring up the change you've noticed, creating space for an open and honest conversation. You could mention, "I've observed a decrease in our communication lately. How are you feeling about things?" Can help her feel comfortable talking about them. This approach lets her say what she thinks without any fear of an argument. Watching her digital habits without pressing her for answers right away is a beneficial Stoic technique. Often people show what they really mean through their actions rather than their words. If she's not actively engaging with you online or digitally and showing the same level of interest, the gap may be growing. It's crucial to observe these changes objectively, avoiding emotional reactions and resisting the temptation to assign a specific reason for each behavior. Using this method of watching lets you judge the state of the relationship without making your own feelings worse. When talking to her about this topic, put your own emotional clarity first and keep a respectful attitude. Stoicism teaches us to control our responses instead of trying to control others. If she's pulling away, staying calm helps you stay grounded and encourages an honest conversation instead of an emotional standoff. By focusing on staying calm, you not only honor your own worth, but you also create a safe space where she might feel more comfortable revealing her true feelings. Digital distance isn't just about technology, it's also a sign of emotional distance and shifting goals. Monitor her online activities objectively and observe the frequency of her conversations. The things she posts on social media and how she says them can give you clues about how she's feeling. If you handle this information with stoicism, you can see where you both stand without letting assumptions or misunderstandings cloud your judgment. If this digital distance lasts, it could mean that she is losing interest in the relationship, which means you need to be honest with yourself about whether her actions match the level of commitment and investment you want in a partner. Eventually, you will notice and deal with these small signs. Without anger or blame, you can face the truth, no matter what it is. The Stoics stress the importance of truth and acceptance, and by calmly watching her digital behavior, you can accept the situation as it is, whether this digital distance is a temporary phase or a more permanent emotional shift. Recognizing these signs helps you both decide what to do next. Being honest is important in a relationship based on real connection and shared interests. Knowing these signs will help you go into the relationship with an open mind and heart. Chapter 5. Of Art, an Excuse Factory. When a woman starts to emotionally move on, she may start making excuses more often. If you notice that she's regularly finding reasons not to spend time with you, it's probably a sign that she's pulling away. These excuses may start with small claims like being suddenly busy, feeling unusually tired, or having other commitments that didn't seem to exist before. While everyone has busy times in their lives, repeated patterns of avoidance point to a deeper problem. This behavior usually shows that she wants to emotionally separate herself from the relationship without facing it head-on. Initially harmless or understandable, these excuses become more common and noticeable. She may now resist or even cancel things she used to look forward to, like weekend trips or shared meals. This is a sign of a change in emotional investment. If she doesn't want to deal with her feelings directly, she may pull away slowly, hoping that the relationship will end on its own. From a Stoic point of view, it's important to notice these patterns without getting angry or defensive. Instead of pressing her for explanations or trying to figure out the real reasons behind her behavior, it's best to look at the situation objectively. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, like our own emotions and reactions, rather than what we can't, like other people's choices. Her reasons, whether she means them to or not, are out of your control. What you can change, though, is how you react to them. When she consistently uses excuses to avoid tasks, it indicates a shift in her priorities. She may not be as emotionally invested in the situation if she keeps canceling plans or doesn't want to spend time with you. Instead of getting angry or accusatory, you should treat her with respect. Please try to understand that her actions show how much she still cares. People's actions often say more than what they say, and making reasons can be a way to emotionally distance yourself without having to talk to someone directly. One important Stoic principle is not to take someone else's actions personally. If you notice patterns of avoidance, don't take them personally, or see them as a reflection of your worth. Her actions are more about her changing priorities than about you. Seeing the situation clearly and emotionally detached will help you respond calmly and logically. Her excuses indicate a relationship change, even if she won't admit it. If she keeps making excuses, it may be time to face the problem, not with anger or resentment, but with calmness and honesty. Instead of seeing the conversation as a fight, try viewing it as a discussion about the future of the relationship. Stoics teach that we should have difficult conversations with calmness and focus on clarity instead of blame. This allows for open communication while keeping your own sense of peace and emotional balance. One thing that Stoicism teaches us is that our happiness should never rest on what other people do. If a relationship starts to fall apart, it's important to face the truth and not hold on to the past. You can end the relationship without anger or guilt if you admit it's not working. Realizing this fact can bring clarity and peace instead of long-lasting confusion. When you look closely, excuses are often a sign that the person making them she uses these reasons to avoid facing the harsh truth, whether she is aware of it or not. When she needs to emotionally distance herself, but is hesitant to express her feelings, she resorts to these reasons as a means of escape. By noticing the pattern early on, you can either deal with the problem or start the process of letting go. As the Stoics say, it's important to make sure your expectations are in line with reality. People's actions reveal their inner state, and by observing these subtle signs, you can figure out what they're trying to say. Instead of waiting for a clear answer, let her actions guide your understanding. If she continues to make excuses, it could indicate a lack of emotional investment in the relationship. Being honest about this with grace will help you avoid needless conflict and emotional turmoil. If the excuses are just her way of showing that she wants to end the relationship, you should respect that and move on with grace. You cannot compel someone to remain in a relationship if their heart no longer supports it. Accepting this reality will give you back your peace of mind. In the end, excuses are more than just ways to avoid plans. They are messages that reveal deeper emotional issues. Changes. Seeing them early on enables you to handle the situation emotionally maturely, regardless of whether the relationship is salvageable or has reached its end. Having a Stoic attitude helps you handle the situation with grace. You learn to let go of things that don't serve you anymore and trust that what comes next will be for the best. Chapter 6. Don't be jealous. A woman's lack of jealousy is often a sign that she is moving on mentally. Jealousy isn't a beneficial trait in large amounts, but it's normal to want to keep a relationship private when we care about it. If she used to be protective or worried when other people paid attention to you but now she's not, it could mean that her emotional connection is weakening. Not being jealous can make her feel like she's no longer interested in the relationship, which can be a sign that her feelings have changed. People who are emotionally close to their partners often show jealousy in small ways, even if it's just a gentle reminder of how much they value the relationship. If she stops showing these protective signs, it could mean she's already emotionally pulling away, not feeling the need to protect the relationship as much as she used to. Some people might see this as a sign of more trust, but it's usually a sign of less emotional investment. She may not care as much about your daily activities, friends, or location. Stoicism encourages you to reflect on yourself and approach the relationship objectively, avoiding anger or hasty judgments. Take a look at the relationship as a whole to see if there are other signs that go along with her lack of jealousy. By focusing on the patterns of the relationship, you can tell if her new lack of interest is a sign of her emotional withdrawal. Another thing to look at is how she reacts to your accomplishments or compliments from others. If she used to be excited or proud of your successes but now seems uninterested, it could mean she's not as invested in your shared life. If she doesn't feel jealous, it could indicate that her emotions have shifted, possibly due to a shift in her priorities or a shift in her perspective on the relationship. The Stoics teach us not to cling to relationships out of attachment alone, but to be aware of the realities of human behavior. If her behavior really suggests that she's moving on, it might be time to ask yourself if her actions match what you expect from a committed partner. When you look at these signs with a calm mind, you can decide what to do next, whether that's starting a conversation or asking yourself if the relationship is still satisfying for both of you. Chapter 7. Making a showing with less work. When a woman stops caring about her appearance, especially around you, it's often a sign of deeper changes in the relationship. In a relationship, we naturally try to present our best selves by taking care to look good, especially when spending time together. But when someone feels emotionally detached, the desire to make that impression can start to fade. If you've noticed this change, maybe she's not paying as much attention to her grooming or choosing casual, low-effort clothes for your time together. It may mean that she's losing emotional investment. This isn't just about how she acts, it's about how she acts. It reveals an individual's emotions and their core values. In the past, she may have spent time getting ready for dates by dressing up and maybe even adding small touches to make her look better. If she doesn't put in as much effort now, it could mean that she doesn't care as much about keeping the relationship alive. It's simple to brush this off as her just getting used to things, but it's often an early subconscious sign that she's putting other things in her life ahead of keeping the spark alive. This change can be subtle at first, but gradually shows a deeper emotional distance. The Stoic perspective provides us with valuable insights in this regard. Stoic philosophy tells us to look at life as it is, not through the lens of our wants or idealized ideals. If you take this approach, you can notice how she's changing without being angry or critical of her. Instead of blaming her for her actions, think about how they probably reflect her current state of mind and heart. Changes in a partner's habits don't always have simple explanations, but they often show how they feel about the relationship. This doesn't mean they don't care, but they may not feel as committed to actively nurturing the connection. The way someone looks isn't the only way to judge their attractiveness or loyalty, but it is an undeniable way that we show our partners how much we care. Putting effort into how you look is often an indirect way of saying, "I care about how you see me." If she stops putting effort into how she looks, it could mean that she no longer wants to impress or attract you. If she used to care about these things but now doesn't, consider what you expected. This change could be part of a larger pattern in her behavior. Watch how she approaches the situation. Besides her looks, does she seem uninterested in other activities or conversations that you and she are having together? When tiny things like grooming yourself start to become noticeable, it can be a sign of emotional distance. Instead of directly questioning her, you might first look at how this change fits in with other things she's done in your relationship. Another thing to think about is whether she puts in extra effort for others, but not for you. If she spends time looking her best for work friends or social events, but doesn't do the same when she's with you, it could mean that she values these relationships differently than yours. It might feel awkward to see her dress up for other events, but go for a more casual look when she's with you. This isn't necessarily about wanting her to look a certain way. It's about how you understand the change in the bigger picture. The Stoics stressed how important it is to accept truths because they knew that changes in behavior can show how our values are changing. This change isn't always bad, but it does make you think about yourself more. It's important to ask yourself if her lack of effort is in line with what you want and need in a relationship. When effort decreases on one side, it can create an imbalance. Realizing this doesn't mean you have to react right away. Instead, it's important to look at how her recent actions compare to how things used to be. If her decreasing effort and appearance feels like a disconnect from the values you both held at the start of the relationship, it may mean that she's mentally preparing for something different. The Stoics believed in this. To deal with these signs calmly, you should keep an open mind and see them for what they are. A chance to be honest about the relationship and see if her actions reflect her current level of interest. Relationships need ongoing investment, and when that investment fades from one side, it's natural to feel its effects. Decide if you're getting the treatment you deserve in a partnership. Stoicism emphasizes self-respect and understanding, urging you to approach situations with acceptance rather than attachment, particularly if she exhibits visible signs of emotional withdrawal. If she modifies her appearance, such as by putting less effort into it, this could indicate a waning commitment. If you combine this sign with other behaviors, it could indicate a declining commitment. As relationships change and people grow apart, it's important to accept these facts without passing judgment. Any or all of these signs in your partner may indicate they're moving on. Stoic philosophy instructs us to approach these situations with a calm, logical mind, acknowledging that not all relationships have the potential to endure forever. By paying attention to the subtle signs of emotional withdrawal, you can make an informed decision about the future of the relationship. Allow yourself to make decisions that are kind to you and make you feel good about yourself. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own stories in the comments. Until next time, remember that strength comes from accepting reality, not our desires.